honestly, the topic of the week has been the Patriots and their coaching situation. And honestly, guys, I did not expect this to be such a big talking point at this point in the season. Because, I mean, the writing is there. Like, the team stinks. We knew they were going to stink. We knew there was going to be a big-time learning curve with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. And it was almost as if we went into the season as fans thinking like, well, we're not going to win many games, so you do need to see some intangible things. You need to see some improvement. You need to see some development from the quarterback. You need to see a direction for this team. And of those three things I just mentioned, you've only seen one. You've seen a development of a quarterback, and that's been great. But if you're a rookie head coach, you need to go back to your owner at the end of the season, the team's owner, sorry. You need to go to Robert Kraft's office at the end of the season and say, hey, like, here's what we did well. Here's some of the games we won that we probably wouldn't have last year or maybe shouldn't have won this year. Here's the direction that we're going, and here's how we got better throughout the season. And I don't think Gerard Mayo can go into Robert Kraft's office and give a check mark for any of those things. I don't think he can actually show you the direction that this team is going in. I don't think he can show you, the wins that they wouldn't have had last year. And I don't think he can show you how they got better throughout the season. And I think this is the most damning part about the Patriots season and their coach, to be specific, and their coaching job that they're getting there is they have had now for close to 10 weeks here, or 10, 12 weeks. They have had the development of their rookie quarterback. Like, he is going to be a star in this league. We're seeing it right now. And yet the team has not gotten any better. Nothing around him has gotten better. And that's a real kind of danger zone, red flag for this organization. Because as we see with the entire league now, it is all about, more than ever, this has always been a part of it, but more than ever in the league now, it's about drafting the right quarterback, getting the pieces around him in his rookie contract to make sure that you are competitive before you pay him. And you see it with teams all the time, teams that will tank for that quarterback, that will get a coach and offensive coordinator in place that are all but handpicked by the quarterback to make sure he's comfortable, and getting weapons around them. Not building a great defense in a run game, but making sure he has receivers to go to on third down. The Patriots have gone the opposite of that with their last two quarterbacks. Well, really, I guess their last 3 or 4 quarterbacks that they've developed, but really the last two in recent memory. They have not gone out and gotten weapons for them. They have not had offensive-minded head coaches for them. And look what's happened. Well, you could argue, Cam, in 2021, they had Josh McDaniels as the OC, and it was obviously Mac's best year. And that's true. You had a good thing in place for, a Belichick defense, which was stout. They had a tremendous defense in 2021. They had good enough weapons. They did have a good run game because they had a good offensive line, and they had Josh McDaniels grooming a young quarterback. That was a perfect scenario. And now you look at it with Gerard Mayo, a guy who's never coached before, Alex Van Pelt, first time fully getting the reins here as the OC. DeMarcus Covington, never been a DC before, was a defensive line coach, which you don't normally see jump to defensive coordinator. And what you have is a complete mess. A complete mess. And Simmons made a good point the other day that I think really rings true, because you look at this team with a young quarterback and a team that really, has some good pieces there defensively that they re-signed, but all have stunk this year. It begs for a situation where you need to change the culture, get a good defense in there, and get a good offensive line and run game for your young quarterback. It's like almost as if the perfect guy for this would be Bill Belichick to be the head coach and Josh McDaniels to be the offensive coordinator. But you ran Bill out of town. And now this is what you got. And you didn't want to interview anybody for the job. This is what you get. Like this is what you asked for as the organization, not the fans, but as the organization. This is what you asked for. So when I see the Crafts up there in their box and Jonathan being caught on live TV being like, this is terrible play calling, it's like, you put these guys in place. You put a head coach in place who had no contacts around the league because he hadn't played or coached anywhere else but New England. You guys are the ones who didn't interview anybody else and hired Elliott Wolf as the GM. Like that's you guys putting it in place. If you, the Kraft family, want all the credit for that dynasty because you did put Belichick in place, then you also get the shit for what's coming right now, for putting a worse head coach in place. But you can't have it both ways. Or I guess in this scenario, you do have it both ways. You know what I mean? You can't have the best of both worlds there. You can get some credit for trading for Belichick. And I've always said that's still, a big time move, obviously. But you also have to take the shit for this season that Jerod Mayo is putting out there. And it's bad enough for what it is on the field. Just terrible personnel, no one that the quarterback can work with, one good player on each side of the ball. It's bad enough with that. But then off the field, it gets even worse. Because earlier this week, of course, we heard after the game on Sunday, Jerod Mayo completely throwing his offensive coordinator under the bus, right? 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Why isn't Drake May running the ball? Hey, you said it, I didn't. Like, just clearly throwing Alex Van Pelt under the bus. And it's not surprising that we've gotten to this point because he's come pretty close to, if not, you could argue, has thrown some of his staffers and some of his players under the bus already this season and called them out in the media this season. Again, things Belichick didn't do. Belichick would certainly be tough on his players, but did not ever call them out in the media. In fact, he said almost nothing to the media. Well, so far this week, we've already had Mayo throw his offensive coordinator under the bus. Why not throw one of his players under the bus too?
I think it was Nate Tice posted on Twitter that Kayshon Boutte isn't finishing all his route splits from what he's seen. Have you seen an issue with that at all with Kayshon this year?
I'm not going to talk about specific players. I think we all have to get better. For me, you talk about Boutte, it's get open and catch the ball. I mean, that's your job as a wide receiver. A receiver's in the title of your job description, and that's our expectation.
I mean, like, he couldn't even get through the sentence. He says, I'm not going to name specific players. Oh, but Kayshon Boutte needs to catch the ball. It's in his title. And look, again, in a vacuum, of course, I think we would all agree with that. Kayshon Boutte does need to catch the ball, right? He hasn't done enough of it. In fact, his drop, literally leads directly to an interception on Sunday. He bobbles it into a defender's hands. But it's once again, this head coach not taking ownership. So for as much as, you might have hated it for years, Belichick would have said, we've all got to be better. Everyone's going to be better. Wasn't a good enough performance today. All 3 phases. And it was boring and sometimes insulting. And sometimes he was a real dick to the media. But from an organizational standpoint, it puts you in a better spot than throwing 2 guys under the bus in the same week. And of course, he's going to walk this back and say, that's not what I meant. And we've heard that game before. We've heard that this season. This is just a classic example of a guy who is in over his head. A guy who was never even a coordinator in the league. He was a position coach and he was a defensive play caller, but had not held a coordinator position, a real one, and definitely didn't hold any kind of coordinator position for any real length of time. And he's way in over his head to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. This is why I said it from the beginning. Why is suddenly the Patriots head coaching position an entry-level position? A guy who has not been a coordinator nor a head coach. It baffles me. And these are the results that you get. You get a guy who's not ready to be a head coach. And to be honest, a bunch of buffoons around him who have not held that high a position before either. Like, this was destined to be a mess. You don't build an NFL team with a bunch of rookies. You know, even when you suck, you add some veterans in there for a veteran presence and how to be a professional. You can't just ignore that for a coaching staff too. And it has obviously gained traction these last few days here that the Patriots should probably make this a one and done situation, should probably move on from the head coach and go somewhere new. So, okay, where is that route? Where do you go with this? And I've been on the Ben Johnson train from the beginning, and I would love that offensive-minded head coach, a guy who's put together like the best offense in the league the last 2 years and has done it with Jared Goff, a good quarterback. I don't think anyone would say an elite great quarterback, but he's made Jared Goff look like an elite quarterback. And I would love to have a guy like that in there. But you also have to remember that he's also never been a head coach, right? And so these same things that we see Jerod Mayo getting overwhelmed with week after week after week, it could be the same thing with Ben Johnson. And so now the hot name is Mike Vrabel. And I love the Mike Vrabel name being thrown out there. And Tom Curran has said that Mike Vrabel would actually be interested in the job, which is raising some eyebrows around the league. Well, Greg Bedard, who said that Mayo would be on the hot seat last week before The Athletic kind of came back with the Diana Rossini report that that Mayo's been privately assured that he will be the coach next year. Now Bedard comes back to comment on this report about Mike Vrabel coaching the Patriots.
Vrabel is interested in coaching the Patriots. Have you heard anything similar to what Tommy Curran has heard about Mike Vrabel?
Yes, he would have an interest in coaching the New England Patriots. I think there's a pretty good chance that Josh McDaniels would come with him. That's my understanding. That's what I'm hearing.
If you are Robert Kraft, would you pull that trigger?
1,000%. What's the percentage that Jerod Mayo can, in time, take this team to a Super Bowl, if not win a championship? What are the chances that Mike Vrabel with Josh McDaniels can do the same thing? To me, it's clear.
I think Bedard can be an absolute airhead most of the time, but I think he's got the right thinking on this one for sure. And he is plugged in. So I don't doubt that report that he's also saying that Mike Vrabel would be interested. But as you know, it might be a shock to some. Christian Arcand of EEI, what a terrible take on this. But Mike Vrabel is going to be at the top of a lot of teams' lists this year. There's going to be 5 or 6 openings, and Mike Vrabel is going to be a hot commodity. Teams like New Orleans and Jacksonville, they will be looking at Mike Vrabel long and hard. Chicago will be looking at Mike Vrabel because he has not hit retread status yet, and he's been successful in this league. Has he went to a Super Bowl? No, he's not gone to a Super Bowl. He's obviously not won a Super Bowl, but he's 10 games over 500 or 9 games over 500 in a pretty good sample size. 4 or 5 years as the head coach in Tennessee. Had a good thing going with them. Had them as a number 1 seed. Had them in an AFC championship game. The end was not great, but there's plenty of problems that there's been with ownership and the GM in Tennessee. And Mike Vrabel did not have the player personnel power. He did not get to shop for the groceries. So I think there is, a kind of a silver lining to the ending of Mike Vrabel's tenure in Tennessee. This guy has proven to be a good NFL coach. He's been around a couple places, so he's got the contacts that Jerod Mayo did not. He has obviously got some Belichick in him. I mean, he played for Belichick for a long time. Belichick really made Vrabel who he was. I mean, he was a special teamer with the Steelers, like just kind of wasting away there. And he comes into New England and becomes one of the best linebackers in their history, and a pretty damn good tight end on the goal line. So there's Patriots roots there. There's success in the NFL there. And there's a critical part of this of Mike Vrabel does not take any shit. And that's what I like the most, because it's a more divisive train of thought than ever in the NFL, and across all sports, really. The NBA is what really started it, of Do we need a kind of an old school guy like that has proven successful in the past? Or do we need that players coach who's going to be warm and soft and cuddly with them? And there's success on either side, right? Like Pete Carroll was successful in the NFL. I don't think a lot of us saw that coming with the rah spirit and everything. But then again, Belichick was still pretty successful for a long time. And I think Andy Reid is somewhere there in between, the most successful coach right now. So I'm taking Vrabel and Josh McDaniels in a second, as a guy with a proven track record in the NFL who wants to coach here, wants to make this thing better, and an OC that has an illustrious history of developing quarterbacks. And mainly that's Tom Brady. and was the best OC that you had for the last quarterback you tried to develop. So I am taking that 11 times out of 10. And you know what? Swing for the fences. Maybe Brian Flores, for some reason, will take a DC job here and leave Minnesota, even though he's had kind of an interesting success story in Minnesota.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.